Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI, and relax with us online at CHFI.com.
From the heart of the city, this is the soundtrack to accompany a phone call, maybe even a wrong number. Good evening, I'm Don Jackson. Sam, do you think there's someone out there you could love as much as your wife? A line from a phone conversation in the film Sleepless in Seattle. Tonight, we're going to answer the phone with Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Steely, Dan, and Rikki Don't Lose That Number, and 10cc, and I'm Not in Love. Henry, there's someone on the stairs. A line from a classic phone conversation in the film Sorry, Wrong Number. It may be hard to believe, but as of last year, there were 4 European countries that had more cell phones than people. Luxembourg, with 120 phones per 100 people. Sweden, with 108. Italy, 107. And the Czech Republic, with 103. In Africa, cell phone usage has grown faster than in any other place on the planet. That according to the Christian Science Monitor. Over the past 5 years, annual usage has increased about 65%. to 152 million users by 2006. Seems every driver I pass on the highway has at least one phone. Have you noticed what's been lit up on those overhead highway signs recently? Drive now, use your cell phone later, or words to that effect. On the way to the hockey arena just the other night, the drivers in every car we passed were gabbing on their cell phones. Walk down any busy street at any hour of the day or night, and you'll see people with cell phones. What did we ever do before cell phones? The first car phone I bought back in the early 90s was a complicated contraption. It sat on a base that needed to be plugged into the lighter. It needed the other front seat just to sit on. It wasn't really worth the effort, but I only ever intended to use it in an emergency situation. Before that, I remember people having car phones with exterior antennas. And you could even buy a fake antenna if you couldn't afford the phone. At the time, a prestige thing, I guess. This was the time when people had those huge portable phones with the antenna that needed to be extended. They looked like walkie-talkies. Movies made in the 80s look so dated now when you see someone talking on one of those phones. Whoever decided the props on the X-Files gave Mulder and Scully smaller cell phones. Now, this was during the 1990s. When cell phone technology was becoming miniaturized. That's why the show can be rerun again and again. The phones don't seem out of place today. I had a much smaller cell phone at that time, but I always wondered when the 2 FBI agents ever charged their phones. You never saw them being recharged, even when one called the other in the middle of the night. It's interesting to note that Agence France-Presse discovered that the real FBI had problems paying their phone bills on time. Apparently, they have an antiquated system for payments, and so telecommunications companies were cutting off service during times when wiretap investigations were ongoing. When Mulder and Scully were in a noisy place, they never seemed to have a problem hearing what was being said on the other end. I can't remember if he ever put a finger in his other ear to try to hear more clearly. In real life, though, people sometimes have trouble hearing the caller, so they'll try to take their call to a quiet place. They might even put a finger in their other ear to try to cut back on the noise. Well, according to the book Welcome to Your Brain by Sandra Amott and Sam Wang, the better thing to do is to cover the mouthpiece. You'll still hear the noise around you, but they claim you'll hear the caller more clearly. Maybe the noise factor is why someone in the industry came up with the idea of text messaging. My son and daughter are very adept at this, but I'd rather just speak to the person on the other end. I guess I'm old-fashioned in that respect. I wonder how many drivers are text messaging behind the wheel. Now that's a scary thought. We're on the phone tonight to Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers. Jim Cuddy and Pull Me Through. Did you see the film The Minority Report that starred Tom Cruise? In one sequence, he is bombarded in his head by ads from a store's computer that recognizes a chip that is embedded and basically lets the store know who he is as he passes by. In reality, we're not that far away from a future like the one Philip K. Dick imagined. Tom Reagan, writing in the Christian Science Monitor, said more cell phones have GPS locators, about 20% now, 50% within 5 years. On one hand, you'll soon see mobile features that will let you track your friends. On the other hand, every time you get too close to a store, you'll receive a coupon on your cell phone that is only good if you come in now. Unquote. We dropped one of our cell phones into a neighbor's pool last summer. It was a nightmare. Now, Britain's Ministry of Defense has developed a waterproof coating for electronic devices. It's being made commercially. So dropping a phone into a pool or getting it wet in the rain will no longer be a concern. We're on the phone tonight with Lovers and Other Strangers and 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers. Rod Stewart with These Foolish Things and John Waite with Alison, Krauss and Missing You. My companion writing is a wrong number. Sorry. Log on to the CHFI website. Follow the links on the homepage to my blog section at chfi.com. And Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI. And relax with us online at chfi.com.
And welcome back to Lovers and Other Strangers, now a blog as well at chfi.com. I'm Don Jackson. I have a bad habit of leaving my cell phone at home, and sometimes, even when it's with me, I've forgotten to recharge the battery. I really try not to use it in the car unless it's an emergency. I've been lucky so far this year that I haven't had to use it yet, considering the kind of winter we've had. But I must admit, I've been on the road while my son's hockey team's been on the ice, and I wait patiently for a call with a score. American life is completely dislocated by storms and snow and hurricanes. When American automobiles can't move, life comes to a halt. And when their famous schedules can't be met, they panic and go into a kind of paroxysm of frustration, besieging railway stations, jamming the long-distance wires, keeping their radios permanently switched on for any crumb of comfort. I could imagine the chaos on the roads and in the cities, and I hugged my cozy solitude to me. An excerpt from Part 1, Chapter 5 of The Spy Who Loved Me by Ian Fleming, published in 1962. by Jonathan Cape Limited. The main character, Vivian Michelle, is alone in a motel with a couple of killers who mean to do her harm. Her savior, James Bond, has yet to appear, but of course he will. He always comes to the rescue in his films and in the original books. We have become a wireless world, and in the process, we're easier to locate than in the past, even easier than when that James Bond novel was written. Today we are all connected. We're much easier to reach in an emergency. A telemarketer called me this afternoon to let me know I want a free vacation. Yeah, right. And if for some reason I've left the phone behind at home, you can leave a message at the beep. For lovers and other strangers, from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, that's Jamie Cullum, all at sea. My wife received this in her email from one of her friends. It's called Caller ID. Its author is unknown. God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? On a Saturday night, several weeks ago, this pastor was working late and decided to call his wife before he left for home. It was about 10 p.m., but his wife didn't answer the phone. The pastor let the phone ring many times. He thought it was odd that she didn't answer, but decided to wrap up a few things and try again in a few minutes. When he tried again, she answered right away. He asked her why she hadn't answered before, and she said that the phone hadn't rung at their house. They brushed it off as a fluke and went on their merry ways. The following Monday, the pastor received a call at the church office, which was the phone he'd used that Saturday night. The man that he spoke with wanted to know why he'd called on Saturday night. The pastor couldn't figure out what the man was talking about. Then the man said, "It rang and rang, but I didn't answer." The pastor remembered the mishap and apologized for disturbing him, explaining that he had intended to call his wife. The man said, "That's okay. Let me tell you a story. You see, I was planning to commit suicide on Saturday night. But before I did, I prayed, God, if you're there and you don't want me to do this, give me a sign now." At that point, my phone started to ring. I looked at the caller ID and it said, Almighty God. I was afraid to answer. The reason why it showed on the man's caller ID that the call came from Almighty God is because the church that the pastor attends is called Almighty God Tabernacle. As it said at the end of this email, when it hurts to look back and you're scared to look ahead, you can look beside you. Your best friend will be there. Lovers and Other Strangers, from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Burton Cummings, and I'm scared. No, my phone was cut off. My email modem caught a virus. I've run out of fax rolls, notepads, discs. Papyrus. An excerpt from a poem called No Thanks by Dennis O'Driscoll, included in the collection 101 Poems to Get You Through the Day and Night, and published in 2003 by HarperCollins. Sometime back there was a TV commercial for one of those picture phones that had a woman in her home closing up her laptop, and then everything else around her began to fold and close up as well. The walls, the plasma TV on the wall, the floors and carpets. I wondered while watching it if you could exist in cyberspace, would this be what it would be like when your user logs off? I will not rest until I have you in a new commercial starring you, broadcast during the Super Bowl. And I will not sleep until that happens. Another memorable line from a phone conversation in Jerry Maguire. There was another commercial that featured a migraine sufferer being tortured by all the light in her apartment. She goes to great lengths to extinguish every light source. She even pulls the plug on the phone because the lighted dial and numbers cause her great pain and agony. And if you've ever known someone who suffers from migraines, you'll know that that is most definitely true. In the commercial, she takes a remote control, aims it at the office building in the distance, seen through her living room window. And when she hits enter, all the lights in the office tower are extinguished, leaving her in blessed darkness. In both instances, both commercials were given the impression that we sometimes need to find a way to turn the world off around us. Maybe it's as simple as turning the phone off on occasion. Do you remember this line from a very popular film? Are you aware, Mrs. Bueller, that Ferris does not have what we consider an exemplary attendance record? An excerpt from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Stay tuned. Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Passion set to words and music. Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI. And relax with us online at CHFI.com.
We're in the heart of Toronto, around the world on the internet, and now a blog as well at CHFI.com. My companion writing is a wrong number. Sorry. Log on to the CHFI website, follow the links on the homepage to my blog at CHFI.com. Good evening once again, I'm Don Jackson. The background music is from the film Contact, a film where Jodie Foster accepted a long distance, and I mean a very, very long distance call from across the galaxy. Thank goodness it wasn't a collect call. In the 1990 edition of the Old Farmer's Almanac was from Priority Management. Over the course of our lives, it is estimated we spend 5 years standing in line, 2 years trying to return phone calls. If you are the average office executive, you'll spend 1.5 weeks every year waiting on hold. Quote, cell phones, picture phones, call waiting, call display, and the internet have changed the way we make phone calls. But one thing hasn't changed, even with all of this new technology, and that is whether or not to answer in the first place. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Lonestar, I'm Already There, and of course Jim Croce with Operator. Do you know what a lonely sight is? The phone booth on the corner. The cell phone pretty well made the phone booth almost a dinosaur. The French romantic comedy Amélie that starred Audrey Tautou is worth mentioning here. The lead character, Amélie, is a little odd, but her heart is in the right place as she sets out to help strangers find happiness. And in the process, she finds love. It all begins with a loose tile behind her bathroom sink. She removes it and finds a child's treasure hidden away, a box filled with trinkets from a time long since past. She decides to find the little boy, obviously now a man, who had squirreled his most precious treasures away for a future time. For some unknown reason, they were either forgotten or intentionally left behind when the family moved. The search takes up a good first portion of the film, but eventually she succeeds in tracking down the treasure's rightful owner. He is now a man who is locked into a routine. He's had a falling out with his daughter and is a grandfather to a child he doesn't really know. Now, Amelie doesn't want to just hand the box over. She wants to create a little mystery surrounding its discovery. She leaves the box in a phone booth just before the man walks by. The phone rings, and when he steps into the booth, he discovers a part of his past. He's moved to tears at the gesture, looks around for the person who has found his most precious reminders of youth. The discovery completely changes his life. He mends the rift between his daughter and himself and takes an active role in his grandchild's life. Amelie has discovered her life's purpose and vows to work her magic in people's lives behind the scenes. In French with English subtitles, it's well worth a first look, even a second, to see what she does to that mean-spirited grocery store owner. Ultimately, though, it is a film about kindness and love. But if you saw the film Phone Booth, then you might be hesitant to answer a ringing phone outside of your home. You might even be hesitant to answer your own cell phone. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers, Celine Dion, in some small way. One of my family's favorite all-time game shows was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? With Regis, of course. It was designed so that the entire family could play along, starting with some of the very easy questions. Sitting at home answering the questions, of course, is much easier than actually being on the show. Someone I used to work with, now living in the States, actually made it on the program, and I'm sure he would agree with that. The show was popular the world over, with versions done in their own language. It was also popular in England, which reminded me of this. From the 2003 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, published by D.C. Thompson and Company. Gay writes, a very popular TV program asked, who wants to be a millionaire? The contestant was given 4 possible answers to each question and had to give the correct one in order to move up a stage. As the questions got more difficult, he or she could use one of their lifelines to ask the audience to help out, or phone a friend who would be likely to know the answer. What a blessing our own lifelines are. The phone which rings just when we feel in need of cheering up, the unexpected bunch of flowers, or the invitation to come and share our tea because we know this hasn't been a good day for you. It's good to be on the receiving end, and rewarding to be the giver. Francis Gay from the 2003 edition of his Friendship Book. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers. The ladies, If I Had $1 Million. My companion writing is a wrong number. Sorry. Log on to the CHFI website. Follow the links on the homepage to my blog at chfi.com. And Lovers and Other Strangers returns. I'm Don Jackson.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI. Toronto's light favorites, 98.1 CHFI, and relax with us online at CHFI.com.
And welcome back to Lovers and Other Strangers, now a blog as well at CHFI.com. I'm Don Jackson. A very long time ago, a call was made and answered. This is an excerpt from Bartlett's book of anecdotes. When New York editor Harold Latham visited Atlanta looking for new writers, he heard a great deal about a woman who was writing a vast epic about the Civil War. Latham contacted her, but a very modest Margaret Mitchell declined to share her novel, saying she had nothing to show. Latham was preparing to leave Atlanta when he received a phone call from the lobby. When he got there, he was stunned to see Mitchell sitting surrounded by two huge towers of her manuscript. What had happened? The young woman whom Mitchell introduced to Latham during the course of his visit had boasted of her own writing genius and her intention to win the Pulitzer, although, as she said, she had already been rejected by the best publishers. You know, you don't take life seriously enough to be a novelist, the young lady said to Mitchell. I think you're wasting your time trying. You really aren't the type. Mitchell was energized, and her book, Gone with the Wind, won the Pulitzer Prize. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Lovers and Other Strangers. Gordon Lightfoot, If You Could Read My Mind. Writer Sherry Soub Cohen interviewed Sam Keen, a spiritual seeker and author of the book Hymns to an Unknown God. In a past New Woman article, she related an experience that made Keen believe in synchronicity, and it involves the phone. This is what he was quoted as saying, and I quote, I went to school with a woman named Jane, and we were sweethearts, but rather too much for each other. So she went off and married a Marine, and I married someone else. She went to live in Monterey, and we lost touch. But many years later, I happened to be in California and thought maybe I'll just see if Jane is around. But I didn't call her. Later, on the highway, on my way home, I had the same thought and a few hours to kill. So this time, I stopped at a toll booth phone to call her, but she wasn't home. I opened the door of the phone booth to leave, and there she was, walking toward me on the highway. Her car had broken down. It was important to me to see Jane again, says Keen. See, the universe was talking to me. We get embarrassed in this world because we don't know why unexplainable things happen, so we use words like chance and happenstance. That throws a blanket over philosophical waters and doesn't tell you a thing. It's synchronicity that paints a bridge over the chasm and tells us that the world works in more mysterious ways than the human mind can ever comprehend. Look, declares Keen, the universe does address me, not to whom it may concern, a lot more often than I'm listening. Most of the time, I'm just not paying attention. Lovers and Other Strangers from 98.1 CHFI. Finally tonight, one last phone call. It is called The Call at Midnight, written by Christy Craig and featured in Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul 2, published in 1995. She writes, and I quote, we all know what it's like to get the phone call in the middle of the night. This night's call was no different. Jerking up to the ringing summons, I focused on the red, illuminated, sleep-dazed mind as I grabbed the receiver. Hello? My heart pounded. I gripped the phone tighter and eyed my husband, who was now turning to face my side of the bed. Mom? I could hardly hear the whisper over the static, but my thoughts immediately went to my daughter. When the desperate sound of a young crying voice became clearer on the line, I grabbed for my husband and squeezed his wrist. Mama, I know it's late, but don't say anything until I finish. And before you ask, yes, I've been drinking. I nearly ran off the road a few miles back and I drew in a sharp, shallow breath, released my husband, and pressed my hands against my forehead. Sleep still fogged my mind, and I attempted to fight back the panic. Something wasn't right. And I got so scared, all I could think about was how it would hurt you if a policeman came to your door and said I'd been killed. I want to come home now. I know running away was wrong. I know you've been worried sick. I should have called you a few days ago, but I was afraid. Sobs of deep, felt emotion flowed from the receiver and poured into my heart. Immediately, I pictured my daughter's face in my mind, and my fogged senses seemed to clear. I think... No, please let me finish, please, she pleaded. Not so much in anger, but in desperation. I paused, tried to think what to say. Before I could go on, she continued. I'm pregnant, Mama. I know I shouldn't be drinking now, especially now, but I'm scared. So scared. The voice broke again, and I bit into my lip, feeling my own eyes fill with moisture. I looked at my husband, who sat silently mouthing, "Who is it?" I shook my head, and when I didn't answer, he jumped up and left the room, returning seconds later with the portable phone held to his ear. She must have heard the click in the line, because she continued, "Are you still there? Please don't hang up on me. I need you. I feel so alone." I clutched the phone, stared at my husband, seeking guidance. "I'm here. I wouldn't hang up," I said. "I should have told you, Mama. I know I should have told you, but when we talk, you just keep telling me what I should do. You read all those pamphlets on how to talk about sex and all, but all you do is talk. You don't listen to me. You never let me tell you how I feel. It is as if my feelings aren't important. Because you're my mother, you think you have all the answers, but sometimes I don't need answers. I just want someone to listen." I swallowed the lump in my throat and stared at the How to Talk to Your Kids pamphlet scattered on my nightstand. "I'm listening," I whispered. "You know, back there on the road after I got the car under control, I started thinking about the baby and taking care of it. Then I saw this phone booth, and it was as if I could hear you preaching about how people shouldn't drink and drive. So I called a taxi. I want to come home." "That's good, honey," I said, relief filling my chest. My husband came closer, sat beside me, laced his fingers through mine. I knew from his touch that he thought I was doing and saying the right thing. "But you know, I think I can drive now." "No," I snapped. My muscles stiffened, and I tightened the clasp on my husband's hand. "Please wait for the taxi. Don't hang up on me until the taxi gets there." "I just want to come home, Mama." "I know. But do this for your mama. Wait for the taxi, please." I listened to the silence, fearing. When I didn't hear her answer, I bit into my lip and closed my eyes. Somehow, I had to stop her from driving. There's the taxi now. Only when I heard someone in the background asking about a yellow cab did I feel my tension easing. I'm coming home, Mama. There was a click and the phone went silent. Moving from the bed, tears forming in my eyes, I walked out into the hall and went to stand in my 16-year-old daughter's room. The dark silence hung thick. My husband came from behind, wrapped his arms around me, and rested his chin on the top of my head. I wiped the tears from my cheeks. "You have to learn to listen," I said to him. He pulled me around to face him. "We'll learn, you'll see." Then he took me into his arms, and I buried my head in his shoulder. I let him hold me for several moments. Then I pulled back and stared back at the bed. He studied me for a second, then asked, "Do you think she'll ever know she dialed the wrong number?" I looked at our sleeping daughter, then back at him. Maybe it wasn't such a wrong number. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing?" The muffled young voice came from under the covers. I walked over to my daughter, who now sat up staring into the darkness. "We're practicing," I answered. "Practicing what?" she mumbled, and laid back on the mattress, her eyes already closed in slumber. "Listening," I whispered. Unquote. Powerful story. The Call at Midnight by Christy Craig, from Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul 2, published in 1995. Reminds me of a line from something called Being There. Being there can be a telephone call, closing the miles. 98.1 CHFI. The Guess Who's Sour Sweet. My companion writing is a wrong number. Log on to the CHFI website, follow the links to my blog at CHFI.com. That concludes another chapter of Lovers and Other Strangers. Lovers and Other Strangers returns long after the sun sets. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.
Your life set to words and music. Lovers and Other Strangers on 98.1 CHFI.